Hi everyone, I'm Walnut, and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC video. In this video, we'll be using a team made by Sudokumasta who got top 16 at the Orlando Regional with it. The team features Tera Steel Dondozo and Focus Sash Tatsugiri, as well as a Trick Room mode with psyspam to help you get around some of the difficult matchups for the Dondozo, like Iron Bundle, Amoonguss, and Iron Hands. To learn about the team, I watched a team report on CK49's YouTube channel. A link to the team report will be in the description below. I have a few notes, mostly about common leads and the group of 4 brought to battle, but I didn't really consider calcs for the most part and just went with my gut during the battles. I would encourage you to check out the team report if you want an in-depth breakdown from the creator. As always, rental code, PokePaste, and timestamps for each battle will be available in the description below, and while you're down there, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's jump into the battles. My first opponent has Fluttermane, Arcanine, Kingambit, Dragonite, Iron Hands, and Iron Bundle. In this first matchup, I was a little bit unsure of who to bring. They don't have a hard counter to Dondozo like Haze, but the Arcanine can intimidate and burn Dondozo, and the Iron Hands is super effective into both types. They also have fast special attackers in Fluttermane and Iron Bundle, which can be a problem. I was just not confident in being able to use Dondozo versus this opponent. Nothing hard counters me, but I just couldn't come up with a game plan in these 90 seconds. I thought that the Trick Room mode wouldn't be too bad here, but the Dragonite makes me not want to lead Indeedee just in case they Ice Spinner my terrain away. I think my game plan for now is to lead Iron Hands and Armarouge, go with a classic fake out Trick Room lead, and then I can Volt Switch into the Indeedee to set up terrain and hit my opponents with Expanding Force. Brute Bonnet will also come along. I'm not sure how great it will be, since a lot of their team threatens super effective damage into it, but if I set up the Trick Room, the Spores might be pretty useful there. The Iron Hands in Trick Room is also nice since the Kingambit is immune to the Expanding Force, but would be hit super effectively by the Iron Hands fighting moves. I almost wanted to lead the Indeedee next to the Iron Hands to fake out Trick Room since Indeedee is bulkier than Armarouge, but I can't fake out in my own Psychic Surge and the whole Ice Spinner issue with Dragonite, so yeah, I'm not leading those two. It looks like my opponent's going to be leading the Iron Bundle and the Fluttermane. And to my surprise, it looks like the Fluttermane has the booster energy, so I'm going to guess that the Iron Bundle is a Focus Sash. I'm a little bit scared of the Fluttermane, since I can't fake it out and the Shadow Ball should OHKO my Armarouge and Moonblast would OHKO the Dark Tera. I wasn't sure how much Dazzling Gleam would do if I went for a Dark Tera, so I didn't go for it on turn 1 because I thought I might KO. But the calcs say I should survive a Dazzling Gleam if I did Dark Tera. Fake out into the Iron Bundle is fine. They could go for a Ghost Tera or Covert Cloak, but that probably isn't the end of the world unless they Hydro Pump the Armarouge, but I think it's more likely that they're going to be holding a Focus Sash and go for a Protect this turn. In hindsight, I don't think I had to worry too much about the Tera and the Fluttermane because a common defensive Grass Tera would make me pretty safe from anything the Fluttermane goes for. The Iron Bundle doesn't protect though, so I'm a little bit worried at this point that it is a Covert Cloak. They go for a Dazzling Gleam, but no Iron Bundle flinches, so we're all safe. And we're going to be able to set up the Trick Room without taking too much damage on turn 1. So it looks like everything's going according to plan so far. Now I'm going to go for an Expanding Force and a Volt Switch. Since the bundle's potential sash is broken, I'm going to target that slot with the Expanding Force and then Volt Switch on the Fluttermane. This way, if my Volt Switch target protects, I still get the Expanding Force off, and if they don't protect, then my Indeedee comes in and my Expanding Force becomes a spread move and would still hit the Fluttermane. I didn't target the Volt Switch into the Iron Bundle because I don't think it would KO, and I kind of want the Iron Bundle gone. The Fluttermane's just going to protect this turn. But they don't go for the double, so this Expanding Force should KO their bundle. I would have liked to get the Indeedee this turn because I just want to be able to click like powerful expanding forces, but looks like it's not the case yet. They're going to be setting in the Iron Hands next, which is kind of unusual to me. I'm just going to go for the same play here, expanding force, and then with the Psychic Terrain I should be able to do pretty good damage into them. I don't think you go for the double protect with Fluttermane here, and you don't have any ground types on your team, so the Volt Switch should go off and I'll be able to get the Indeedee in. They go for a Tera of their own here. I think I could have gone for a Tera on my side as well, since I kind of expect them to go for a Shadow Ball here, but I thought the Expanding Force might just pick up the KO because I'm just used to it doing so much damage. Iron Hands goes for the Volt Switch, doesn't deal too much damage because it is a special move. And we're going to go to Indeedee. They could have went for a Fake Out on the Armarouge with the Iron Hands, since the Psychic Terrain wasn't up before the Volt Switch, but that is a bit risky because then I could just hard switch, so maybe I should have hard switched this turn just to be a little bit safer. We're gonna proc our Psychic Seed as well, so we have higher special defense. They're gonna go for a Drain Punch, and it does a decent amount of damage into Indeedee. But this Expanding Force is gonna do even more, bring both my opponents quite low. And it is a berry on their Iron Hands, so at this point I'm maybe thinking it's a Assault Vest on the Kingambit. Shadow Ball is able to KO my Armarouge though, so if we went for the Dark Tera we would have lived this turn and could have got off more Expanding Forces. Now I'm going to bring in the Iron Hands. The Brute Bonnet feels kind of walled by the Tera Grass Iron Hands, and I'd have to go for a Tera of my own or else I'm just a 1-up for that thing. So yeah, Iron Hands is going to come in. I have 2 turns of Trick Room left. I thought about going for like a Follow Me and then I could just start taking out their Mons with my Iron Hands, but I don't think I need to Follow Me here. I outspeed their Fluttermane and then I can just go for a Psychic to take it out. Then my Iron Hands can just safely go after theirs. My Iron Hands will just go for a Drain Punch and then I'll be able to do damage while healing up a bit. I also go for a Tera Grass this turn. I didn't exactly mean to because I said I was going to be safe from fairy moves this turn, so unfortunately I did waste it when I didn't need to commit the Tera just yet. Their Fluttermane is just going to protect this turn, stall out another turn of Trick Room, and Drain Punch does a little bit to their Iron Hands. It's not that much though. And they're going to keep Drain Punching my Indeedee. But now they can't protect their Fluttermane this turn, so I might just go for the same play, Psychic into Fluttermane and then Drain Punch into Iron Hands. The Drain Punch isn't doing too much damage into their Iron Hands, but if they do end up KOing my Indeedee, I think I can finish off the Iron Hands while my Brute Bonnet protects. In hindsight, this play has a lot of problems because the Iron Hands, if it attacks the Indeedee, then I don't get an attack off into the Fluttermane, letting it get off Moonblast if it wants to. And then the Trick Room would end and then they would outspeed me and could go for even more. Their Fluttermane's actually going to switch out this turn into the Glad Imperio, which is Kingambit, which I'm a little bit surprised to see. I wasn't exactly expecting Kingambit in the back because they didn't bring it in when I was expanding forcing. They instead went for the Tera on the Iron Hands. I thought it was going to be Arcanine in the back since they could go for Snarl or Burns and Intimidates. But no, I guess they just had the Kingambit in the back. Maybe they were scared of my Iron Hands because it was still out. But they're able to waste my Indeedee turn for a second turn in a row. And now the Trick Room is gone. The Drain Punch into the Kingambit seems really tempting since they can't go for a Tera, but I really wanted the Iron Hands on their side gone so it's safer for my Brute Bonnet in the back. So I don't think a Drain Punch would KO their Iron Hands, so I'm going to boost it with a Helping Hand and then I might be able to get the KO and maybe catch them by surprise. Their Kingambit doesn't really threaten my Iron Hands here, so I'll just ignore it. They can't hit my Iron Hand super effectively or anything like that since they can't go for like a flying Tera. Indeedee's gonna go for the Helping Hand, and the King Gambit's just gonna protect. I honestly thought it was gonna be Assault Vest since it was a berry on the Iron Hands, but nope. They just go for Protect, and then they Drain Punch the Indeedee to finish it off. But we're going to be able to get him back with the Iron Hands. Drain Punch is going to finish it off. Luckily this play worked out, but it would have been pretty bad if they went for a switch into the Flutter Mane. That way they'd be able to reset the Fake Out and they might have it once the Psychic Terrain ends, and they'd be able to ignore my Helping Hand boosted Drain Punch. They were probably playing to make sure I just don't get the Trick Room up, but looks like I got the read right this turn. Now I'm going to send in the Brute Bonnet, they're going to send in the Flutter Mane, and the game should be ending pretty soon. So the Tera Grass ended up being pretty good. It's pretty valuable in this situation at least. Their King Gambit just protected, and they've already used their Tera, so I'm just going to Drain Punch into that slot for free. Their Flutter Mane shouldn't be able to KO my Iron Hands, but I think a Moonblast in the Brute Bonnet could, but turns out it doesn't. The thing is, I thought to guarantee the win, I thought I needed to Spore something, so that's why I did end up Sporing the Flutter Mane this turn while I was running out of time. But since the Flutter Mane can't KO any of my Pokemon, I think I should have been safe to just go for a double attack here to win the game. But they're just going to go for a Dazzling Gleam, and it's not going to be able to do enough damage to my team. Turns out Brute Bonnet's faster than their King Gambit. I'm a little bit surprised, but I guess it does have 4 legs, so it could run pretty fast, I guess. Drain Punch is going to suck it all back up, and now the Flutter Mane will have to take a guaranteed sleep turn and will win the game. I didn't play that well this battle, but considering I don't really know the calcs too well, I think my game plan was okay at least. Identifying that the Iron Hands is what I needed to take out at the end was good, and we eventually got there, though it wasn't perfect. I think I should have just hard switched and Terra'd the Armarouge the turn I Volt Switched into the Indeedee. I think Tera Dark Armarouge is pretty safe in that spot, and does a ton of damage to the rest of their team. My Indeedee ended up wasting a few turns, but I really didn't think the King Gambit would switch in since they didn't use it as an Expanding Force immunity, though I did only use it once. I think Brute Bonnet would be better in this matchup if I was more familiar with the speed tiers of these slower Pokemon, as it should outspeed the Iron Hands and King Gambit outside of the Trick Room, but good game to my opponent. It was a fun first time trying this team. I'm actually going to skip the second battle for now. I used Dondozo Tatsugiri, but the battle ended up being a little bit slow paced at first, so I'm going to save that battle for the very end if you'd still like to see it. My opponent has a very interesting team, so I think it's still worth the watch. My next opponent has Roaring Moon, Flutter Mane, Torkoal, Great Tusk, Arcanine, and Bellibolt. And yep, they have Bellibolt. They also have that Torkoal to set up Sun for their 3 Photosynthesis Mons, and it could even be Trick Room on Flutter Mane, as Torkoal and Bellibolt are both pretty slow and they could take advantage of it. I didn't feel like bringing Dondozo into their team. I don't think it'd be that bad, but I wasn't sure how the matchup into Bellibolt would go, and so since there was so much uncertainty, I thought I'd just bring the Trick Room squad this time. I didn't think my opponent had the best options into Indeedee Armarouge in the lead, so I thought I'd just lead those two. The other leads I considered were Iron Hands Armarouge and Indeedee Brute Bonnet. Iron Hands Armarouge worked out pretty well last time, and I think it worked pretty well here. I could also Tera defensively if I needed to. The Indeedee Brute Bonnet makes me a little bit nervous, because they do have a lot of super effective attacks into the Brute Bonnet, but if they're attacking the Bonnet, that means they're not attacking my Indeedee. And if they're attacking my Indeedee, I could just put them to sleep and then try again with the Armarouge. I think any of the combinations of leads would allow me to get the Trick Room up at some point, but I wanted to try Indeedee Armarouge since I've never really led them together before. And my opponent's going to be leading the Fluttermane and the Arcanine here. And I think on this first turn they're probably going to go for like a Moonblast, maybe a Snarl with the Arcanine to slow down the damage that my Armarouge is going to be able to output and to kind of get around the Follow Me that they might expect. I'm going to go for a Protect on the Armarouge and then Trick Room with the Indeedee so I don't eat a special attack drop. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but the Arcanine on their side has an Air Balloon. I did not notice when I was battling, I just missed it. But yeah, I'm going to go for a Protect and then a Trick Room on the Indeedee here. This way I do not take that special attack drop. And then these Expanding Forces are going to hurt. The opponent is going to go with a Moonblast on the Fluttermane, not too big of a surprise. But they're also going to Flare Blitz the Indeedee, so it looks like they either just targeted that slot because they were expecting to follow me and just didn't care, but yeah, Indeedee takes the full brunt. We do at least survive and get the Trick Room off because Indeedee is a beast and its rotund body is just so bulky. Yeah, now that the Trick Room is up, I feel like Helping Hand and Expanding Force is pretty strong here and it should knock him out. Maybe if it's a Tera Dark Arcanine they can survive the turn, but Tera Dark Arcanine isn't too threatening into me, so I'm okay with it. I don't think you're going to Shadow Ball the Armarouge if you're Fluttermane, since I do have Indeedee who could go for a Follow Me. The Arcanine's going to protect this turn so we don't get the KO on the dog. And Expanding Force isn't enough to pick up the KO on the Fluttermane. Maybe if I had a Twisted Spoon or a Life Orb for a little more damage we would have gotten it. And they're going to be able to Moonblast the Indeedee because they survived. But luckily it wasn't a KO on the Armarouge, so we're still threatening the Expanding Force here. Now I'm going to be switching in the Iron Hands on the Indeedee slot, just in case they do have the Dark types in the back, like the Roaring Moon. I didn't actually notice the Air Balloon in the beginning, so I thought it might still be the Safety Goggles, in which case I could bring in Brute Bonnet and then just Spore them. But yeah, I'm going to bring in the Iron Hands, and then I'm just going to keep going for Expanding Force. It should KO the Fluttermane, and then I'm just going to Drain Punch with the Iron Hands into the Arcanine slot, deal a little more damage, and it also covers for a Dark Tera or any Roaring Moon switches. But they're actually going to switch out the Fluttermane. And it's going to be Belly Bolt. Drain Punch does a decent amount to that Arcanine, especially since we didn't have to take a Intimidate drop. We pop their Balloon, and the Expanding Force in the Psychic Terrain is able to finish off the Arcanine and deal a little bit of damage to the Belly Bolt. Now my opponent's going to be sending in the Torkoal, and this is a bit of a weird situation because they kind of just jacked my Trick Room. They're slower now, so they're going to be outspeeding me under my own Trick Room. The thing is, I don't think they're especially threatening to me. My Armarouge seems pretty safe, so I'm just going to go for an Expanding Force here. I'm a little bit scared of how much Earth Power from Torkoal might do, since I don't know the calcs too well. So I'm going to go for a Dark Tera just to take the Earth Power better if they do choose to go for that. And then I will Drain Punch with the Iron Hands into the Belly Bolt slot. I don't want to switch this turn just in case they go for an Eruption, and then my Brute Bonnet would just explode. So yeah, we're going to commit the Dark Tera. Unfortunately, this means we won't have our Tera for something defensive, so we're going to be especially weak to that Fluttermane. And they don't go for an Earth Power, it's actually just a Yawn into the Iron Hands. I could theoretically go for a Volt Switch the following turn to get out and clear the Yawn, but they could also go for Protects, which would be pretty bad, because then we'll be falling asleep. They go for a Parabolic Charge and they hit their own Torkoal too. And they also are able to heal up to full. Our Drain Punch is going to take our HP back. And then this expanding force should be enough to KO the Torkoal. We almost KO the Belly Bolt as well. But now they're going to be able to bring the Fluttermane back in. I think if a Fluttermane is carrying Trick Room, they might usually be holding a Focus Sash 2 instead of like a Choice Specs or Life Orb or anything like that. And we know it's not a Life Orb because of the first turn. So this Fluttermane probably isn't dealing too much damage. I would expect them to have Protect. This turn, I will probably feint with Armarouge to another Parabolic Charge, so I'm just going to protect the Armarouge this turn. Then I'll switch out the Iron Hands, just so I don't fall asleep. I expect the Fluttermane to protect, so I don't think it's worth attacking with either slot this turn, even though it's my last turn of Trick Room. This is a little bit dangerous though, because I'm Dark Terror with the Armarouge, and with Trick Room running out, I'm going to be really weak to the Fluttermane. So yeah, we're going to protect with the Armarouge here, stall out our own last turn of Trick Room, but they're going to just go straight for the Parabolic Charge, no Protect on the Fluttermane, and that's going to pick up the KO. So thank you Belly Bolt for taking out their big threat for us. I'm not sure why they did that, because probably our Focus Sash, maybe they didn't have Protect on this set because they couldn't fit it. Yeah, but luckily my opponent did KO themselves. I think I was pretty safe anyways, since I could probably just spore the Fluttermane with Brute Bonnet, and then I could win from there with Iron Hands. My opponent had a pretty good turn 1, and I wasted my Protect, but luckily Indeedee survived. If they fainted, like if it was a Life Orb or Specs Fluttermane, I probably would have lost. My opponent used my own Trick Room against me, which was kind of cool, but I don't think they used it too well, because they just yawned me, and then helped me KO them, which I guess I'm okay with. My Tera this battle wasn't very good. I thought I would need it versus the Earth Power, since I'm not used to these Pokemon and I don't know the calcs, but the Armarouge should live that. So a defensive Tera that would have helped me beat the Fluttermane, like Tera Grass on the Iron Hands, would have been a lot better in this battle, but GG's to my opponent. My next opponent has Iron Valiant, Goldengo, Arcanine, Iron Bundle, Garganacl, and Dragonite. One of the leads mentioned in the team report was Armarouge Dondozo, which sounds pretty interesting to me. It wasn't used as much by Sudokumasta, but was used by another player mentioned in the report, and they said you could use both, see what they lead, and then just switch into whatever mode they're weaker against, so I'm going to try that lead this time. I wanted to try the Indeedee Bonnet, but their team looks a little bit rough for Brute Bonnet, as Goldengo and Garganacl are both immune to status, and everything else threatens powerful super effective damage unless I commit a Tera. So I'm going to try my hand at Armarouge Dondozo lead, and then Indeedee Tatsugiri in the back. I didn't lead the Indeedee Armarouge versus their team because I was scared of Wide Guard from Garganacl and Iron Valiant, as Wide Guard can just shut down psyspam by blocking the expanding force. But if I have Dondozo out, then you might want to try Salt Curing it, which could give me an opportunity to get into a good position. My opponent's going to be leading the Arcanine and the Iron Bundle. It looks like they have the booster energy on the Iron Bundle. This turn I could see my opponent going for a Freeze Dry or Will-O-Wisp into the Dondozo, and maybe a Snarl or Hydro Pump into the Armarouge, but I think I'm going to lean towards the Dondozo side a little more here. Right now their Arcanine is faster than my Dondozo, but if I go for a Tera Dark and then a Trick Room, I should guarantee survive, and then my Dondozo can outspeed the Arcanine and Trick Room, and then I can get a sub up so they won't be able to Will-O-Wisp me. From there I could also bring in Tatsugiri if I wanted to, and then just punch a hole in their team with Dondozo. Of course we have taken an Intimidate drop here, but I don't think their team can handle Dondozo that well. And once I get the substitute up, I can order up to get my attack back. It looks like there's not a Tera from their side, since my Armor should be one of the slowest Pokemon on the field here. Or maybe the slowest. I'm not exactly sure of the Dondozo speed tier, but I believe Armor is just slower. We go for a Protect on our side, so it's probably no Protects from them. They're going to go for a Hydro Pump on the Iron Bundle, but it's actually just going to miss the Armarouge, so we went for the Tera to be safe, and at least we're safe. They go for the Will-O-Wisp into the Dondozo. And we're able to get the Trick Room up with the Armarouge. So that was a nice first turn. Now that Trick Room is up, my Dondozo is pretty safe from the Arcanine. I'm going to go for a Substitute this turn, and then Expanding Force with the Armarouge into the Iron Bundle. The Arcanine's not really threatening to me now, so I'm just going to ignore that slot this turn. My opponent's going to be switching out the Arcanine here, which I guess makes sense. And in is going to come the Dragonite. We go for the Expanding Force onto the Iron Bundle, but it's not enough to pick up the KO, so I probably should have went for the Armor Cannon there just to be a little safer. Yeah, they're both neutral and Armor Cannon would do more damage. But since I didn't pick up the KO on the Iron Bundle, they're able to go for a Freeze Dry into my Dondozo and take out my Substitute. Since Expanding Force didn't KO, I think I'm going to lean towards the Indeedee Armarouge mode hard here. I've lost my Substitute anyway, so I'm not really losing too much with the Dondozo. They could make a read and then go for an Ice Spinner, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll get one Expanding Force off at least, and then Ice Spinner would do pretty little damage. I could also threaten a Tatsugiri switch in, so I don't think you just go for the Ice Spinner straight up. I am going to take my time with my turn here. I like to use as much time as I can just to make sure I have time to think, but because I was running out of time, I almost misclicked at the very end. But luckily we didn't. We're able to get the Indeedee in. So we're going to be able to deal a lot of damage with this Expanding Force if they don't protect. And they are going to go for a Protect on their Iron Bundle, keep it safe for a turn. But the Dragonite's going to go for an Extreme Speed, and so no Ice Spinner in the Psychic Terrain. We're going to be able to launch an Expanding Force, and the trainer is going to disconnect. So this battle, although cut short, was probably one of my favorites. I really enjoyed leading Armarouge in DD, as it had a lot of mind games, and I wonder how hard it was for my opponent, since they got to be scared of the Tatsugiri coming in at any time. The Trick Room was really useful for getting around the Iron Bundle, which was mentioned in the video, but I think I used it in a pretty creative way to get around the Will-O-Wisp and set the sub up. It would have just been perfect if I went for the Armor Cannon that turn and taken out the Iron Bundle and had the sub up with the Dondozo. My next opponent has Arcanine, Gyarados, Sylveon, Dragapult, Magnezone, and Iron Hands. I'm not sure what my opponent's going for with their team, but from what I can see, their Dondozo answer is probably the Intimidates from Arcanine and Gyarados. Maybe they have Terraflying Magnezone to deal damage and also be immune to Earthquake, and Iron Hands is always pretty powerful. I thought the Indeedee Armarouge wouldn't be too bad here. They don't have any Dark types on their team, and the only Psychic resist is going to be Magnezone. However, I wanted to try limit testing with Dondozo a bit, since I haven't used it in Series 2. Substitute can block Intimidate, and since they have two Intimidate Pokemon who can't hit Water type Dondozo very well, I thought it'd be fun to give it a shot. I didn't want to lead Dondozo so I don't get intimidated before I can get my sub, so I put it in the back. I led Iron Hands and Brute Bonnet into their team, since in my notes, Iron Hands, Brute Bonnet, Dondozo, Tatsugiri seems to be a group of 4 that you can bring, though I wasn't quite sure about the lead. I thought maybe I could fake out and Spore an opponent before getting Dondozo in and maybe getting a better position from there. I've also never used Focus Sash Tatsugiri before, so I was a little unsure of how to play it, since I did want to save it for Dondozo later, so I didn't put it in the lead. Sylveon and Dragapult have spread moves that are super effective, so I thought I'd just protect it for now and keep it in the back. My opponent's going to be leading the Sylveon and the Arcanine here. And I am looking to go for that fake out in Spore, maybe get like a sleep, and then I can position my Dondozo afterwards, get a sub up while only one Pokemon's able to attack. I'm going to go for a fake out into the Arcanine slot and then sleep powder the Sylveon. I'd rather not take a Hyper Voice, but the Arcanine could easily be Tera Grass or have safety goggles, and I think the Sylveon's less likely to have a sleep immunity. So I'm just going to go for the Spore onto that slot instead. Unfortunately, the Hyper Voice would be doing decent damage if they go for it, but I think the sleep's going to be pretty valuable here, and give me a couple turns to get some damage onto it. There's no protects from their side this turn, so we're going to get the fake out onto their Arcanine. But they're going to set up Misty Terrain with their Sylveon, which I didn't really expect. Pretty interesting tech to not only change the terrain, but also prevent statuses. So it looks like it would have been good into the Brute Bonnet and maybe the Indeedee as well. Spore's going to fail, and it's actually leftovers on Arcanine, not safety goggles, so if the Misty Terrain wasn't here, I could have just went for the fake out into Sylveon and then Spore into Arcanine. So I thought about bringing Dondozo in now. Since the Misty Terrain is up, I'm actually immune to burns, and the Arcanine's already in, so I can't really get intimidated. The thing is, I brought the Dondozo in on the Brute Bonnet slot, but that slot's more likely to be targeted by fire attack from the Arcanine this turn, so I should have brought it in on the Iron Hand slot. That way I'd only be getting hit by the Hyper Voice that the Sylveon's probably going for here, and not both hits from their team. The Arcanine is going to go for a Flare Blitz, so if we didn't switch into that slot, we'd be 21 HP healthier. They're going to go for a Hyper Voice too, and it's going to do a little more damage. So this next turn, I didn't think my opponents were too threatening yet. I wanted to go for a substitute so I wouldn't be able to get Intimidate cycled if they had the Gyarados in the back. They'd only be able to get one Intimidate off. I also thought about going for an Earthquake here, but the thing is if they have the Gyarados they could protect the Sylveon, switch in Gyarados, and then just get a free attack drop into me, which would be kind of awful. So I thought I'd just get the sub up first. I could have went for the Tera to eat Hyper Voice a little bit better, but I didn't think it was worth committing just yet. They're going to switch out the Arcanine and bring in the Dragapult, which I'm a little bit confused by. I'm not sure what Dragapult does versus Dondozo. Sylveon's going to detect this turn, and we're going to get a sub up for relatively free. So I'm not sure why Dragapult switched in. I thought it might be Infiltrator to hit around my sub, but they switched it in before I went for Substitute, so maybe not. I'm going to go for a Protect this turn to heal with leftovers and see what they might go for. It's been pretty slow so far, but I'm just feeling out what my opponent's going for, and I think this position's alright. Because now we're behind the sub and we're set up with our Dondozo. The opponent's also going to protect with Dragapult this turn, so I don't get to learn too much about him. But we're going to be able to at least heal up a little bit from this leftovers, which is nice. And this turn, I'm going to go for the Tera Steel now. I think it'll let me take whatever hits they decide to go for, like any Hyper Voices or Dragon moves if they do have Infiltrator. I have my sub up so they can't intimidate me if they bring the Arcanine back in, so I'm just going to attack with my Earthquake here. I thought about going for Order Up to get more attack stacks, but I wasn't sure how much Dondozo would do, and I didn't know if I needed more attack, so I just went for Earthquake to see how much it does. Fun story, I actually used to have a little bit of a grudge against Indeedee, just because I had a hard time against Hard Trick Room when I was in Great Ball tier when I first started out VGC. But after all this time, I actually kind of want to use Indeedee. It looks very cute and it's just so round and looks very polite. Sylveon's just going to go for a Detect this turn. What does Dragapult go for? It goes for a Curse. I did not see that thing coming and my jaw is just on the floor at this moment. Curse Dragapult is certainly one of the sets of all time and is going to be really good into my Dondozo because it's going to hit around the Substitute even if it doesn't have Infiltrator. And this Earthquake's going to finish it off, though the Order Up would have been a little more valuable here. So unfortunately, even though I've been playing it kind of slow up until now, my opponent is putting a timer on me with that Curse, so I can't really go for any more passive plays. My opponent's going to be sending in the Iron Hands as their last Pokemon. And Earthquake looks pretty good here. Their team doesn't really take Earthquakes too well, so I'm just going to keep going for it. It's not like I have many other options. It's either that or Order Up, and you know, they could protect like that, and Order Up's a little bit less valuable. That +2 Earthquake does more than half to Sylveon, though it does have a berry to heal it back up. Earthquake still should be a 2-hit KO on it though. So I'm just going to keep going for Earthquakes the following turn. They're going to go for a Hyper Voice. Deal a little bit to my Dondozo. And unfortunately this Substitute didn't end up being too useful for me. I guess it's able to protect me from any Intimidates and any flinches if they try to go for a Fake Out. But yeah, I'm just going to keep going for Earthquake again. They could go for a Tera Grass on their Iron Hands, so the better decision is probably to just go for the Order Up into the Iron Hands. My opponent has been protecting almost every turn where it's possible, so it's reasonable to expect them to protect here on the Sylveon too, so Earthquake's a little bit less valuable here. But at the time I wasn't thinking too hard about specifically what move to go for. They are going to go for the Tera this turn, and I expect it to be on the Iron Hands. But instead of Tera Grass, it's Tera Bug. Either way, it's going to be able to resist this ground type move. But Tera Bug's pretty cool as it lets it also resist fighting, so maybe it's better into the opposing Iron Hands. They're going to Detect on the Sylveon here. And this Earthquake's going to be doing pretty little damage. Yeah, we barely do any to the Iron Hands. And they're gonna go for a Drain Punch. I didn't actually know this, but if you Drain Punch a sub, it'll heal you, so that's pretty cool. And unfortunately, the Leftovers healing is not able to bring us out of range of the curse damage. If we had switched into the other slot and not taken a Flare Blitz on the turn we switched Dondozo in, we would have actually had enough HP to survive one more turn and gotten another attack off with Dondozo. But we're gonna faint, and my last two Pokemon aren't that great into theirs. The Iron Hands with the Tera Bug has a better matchup into mine, and my Brute Bonnet can't Spore because of the Misty Terrain from their Sylveon. I thought I would just send in the Brute Bonnet to force out the Misty Terrain from them. And then maybe I can do something with Tatsugiri. And so you guys might be seeing it now, but I didn't see this during my battle, and it's the line that I could taunt the Sylveon and then go for a Spore into their team. That way I'd be able to stop the Misty terrain from going up, and they might expect the taunt on the Tatsugiri, since it's usually more common to have a Choice Scarf instead. But instead I'm going to be switching out the Brute Bonnet, which really doesn't make too much sense here. This was just me not thinking too straight after seeing that Cursed Dragapult, but if I taunt the Sylveon and Spore the Iron Hands here, I think I actually have a chance to come back into this game. However, I'm not going to make that play, and then I'm going to desperately click Muddy Water and hope for misses until I lose this battle. I don't hate some of my decision making like early in the battle, like that first turn. They just had some incredibly unique sets that I didn't expect, but even so I think this game was winnable up until that last questionable play I made. I think the Trick Room mode would have done quite well into their team, but I don't regret bringing Dondozo to learn more about the matchup. If I switched into the other slot on turn 2, I would have gotten another turn out of Dondozo. I could have also went for more thoughtful plays when they were just alternating protects, like going for Order Up a few times instead of just spamming Earthquake. I definitely needed more damage into the Iron Hands to have a chance to win the game. Since Tera Bug Iron Hands is hard for my team to hit, so Order Up would have been pretty useful there. I think if my Dondozo had Wave Crash, I would have clicked it over Earthquake in a few instances, but I believe Orlando took place before they fixed the Order Up bug, so I guess it makes sense on this set. I definitely got to learn a lot of interesting things in this matchup though, so GG's to my opponent, they had a really cool team. This is going to be my last battle, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I didn't get to lead Indeedee Brute Bonnet, which was a lead in my notes. I was still thinking about that lead, but I couldn't tell how or when to use it. I would assume it's going to be like a Follow Me Spore or a Spore Trick Room. I also didn't get to use Tatsugiri too much, and my Dondozo was shut down in that last game, but I think they were pretty fun to use. I'll be more careful with my Dondozo in the future, and probably only bring him to matchups where I'm more confident. I personally like Life Orb or Twisted Spoon Armourouge for a little more damage, so maybe I can drop the Safety Goggles since this team already has a few Spore immunities, and Brute Bonnet and Iron Hands Tera Grass. The Tera Dark is really nice into opposing Psyspam since you're basically straight up immune. I think I would have also liked Dazzling Gleam instead of Psychic on Indeedee, just like a personal preference thing in case I want to hit Dark types and break sashes. But I really enjoyed this team. If you'd like to try it out, I left the rental code and Pokepaste in the description below. I'm looking to refine the sand team that I used some more, and might use it in an upcoming video. I've been experimenting with a different Fluttermane and have been trying Gothitelle, so it's basically like the standard Talon Tusk team but with Tusk replaced with Garchomp. Once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye.